Hi class, how you guys doing? I want to go ahead and demonstrate this week 2 exercise person place thing. Now understand I'm not going to do a complete demonstration here. I'm going to give you some tips, some tricks, and some techniques to look out for while you're creating your composites for this exercise person place and thing. This is the technique that you'll be using for your cinematic poster, and this is a very well accepted technique, and some of these things I'm going to show you are industry standard practice, and they will become applicable to your work for the not only this exercise but also for the cinematic poster. So that said, again, I just kind of want to reiterate this video tutorial is not meant to replace the learning resources. It's meant to supplement the learning resources for week 2, specifically in the setting up and execution of a composite file. So what is a composite file? A composite file is basically we're taking several different files, combining them into one file. So this particular example asks us to combine a person, a place, and a thing. So we have a background image that would be the thing, right? And quite often you may not need to mask this background layer. I'm not going to. I'm just going to use a scene as my background layer, and then I'm going to composite 2 additional elements into that scene that would be indicative of the background image being the scene and then the place, and then the 2 images I'm going to bring into that place are just simply a banana and a basketball. But at this stage, I would like you to use your imagination a little bit and imagine that these are the same exact techniques that you would be bringing a person and a thing into your place. Okay, so that said, let's go ahead and get started. So I've got my image as this is my background image I'm going to use for the background. Then I've got this banana image, and then I've got this basketball image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask out the basketball and then the banana, and I'm going to bring those into the composite image just to show you how to do that. Then I'm going to show you some tips and tricks on adjustment layers and clipping masks. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come to our background layer. That's the layer we want to use, right? Now, note, I'm going to talk about adjustment layers in a second, but what I would recommend that you wait until all of your elements are in place before you start with adjustment layers. And that'll make sense in 1 second. It has to do with clipping masks and isolating adjustment layers to specific layers, or creating layers as a global adjustment. And again, that'll all make sense in 1 second. But right now I'm going to bring this banana. I want to mask this banana. That means remove the background, and I want to bring the banana into the background image. Then I want to mask the basketball, which means, again, removing the background and bringing it in to the composite image. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is come to the banana. We'll come to this banana layer. First thing I want to do is unlock the background so that we can work on it with it. And it just click the lock. That's all you need to do. At this point, we'll create a layer mask. So this is where selections come in, right? Selections are critical importance in all of Photoshop non-destructive editing. So everything starts with a perfectly accurate selection. Now, thankfully, there's many ways to compile, to compile accurate selections using Photoshop, and a lot of those are covered in the Week 2 Learning Resources book. So be sure, please, to make yourself familiar with those selection techniques. Right now, I'm just going to grab a selection technique. I'm going to select my banana. And I don't like that selection, so I'm just going to reduce the size of this a little bit. Let's go ahead back in. Let's go ahead. There's a great selection of my banana. At this point, I want you to note that you can save this selection just by going to the word select across the top of the screen, and then come down to save selection. Name that selection, and that will be saved as an alpha channel. Let me show you what I mean. So if I have this, I'm just going to come over to select. I'm going to say save selection, and we'll just call this selection 1. Okay, and I want you to see what happens. I'm just going to save it as a new channel. Okay, I'll say OK. Now if we come to our channels palette, so I go to the Photoshop, the word window, come down to where it says channels. There's our channels palette, and there's our selection 1 right there, saved out as an alpha channel. Okay, now with this selected, I need to remove the background. So with this selection and tagged, I'm just going to come over to the layers panel, and I'm going to select that layer mask icon. It removes the background effectively, right? Masks it. Now, don't forget, it's not gone. This is non-destructive editing, meaning if I shift-click this background, there's the background. So I shift-click the thumbnail, there's the background. So again, this points to non-destructive editing. Okay, at this point, I'm ready to take this image and move it into my composite image. So I'm going to come to my Move tool. It's Command V is your shortcut. Excuse me. And I'm going to grab this. I'm just going to drag it right over to the tab. Let me show you that again. I want to show you something again. And I'll bring this down into the window because in the banana image, I'm going to grab the banana and I'm just going to grab it and bring it right over to the tab for my background image. Hover over the tab, then bring it down, let go of your mouse, and there it is. Now, PC users, note this, you might have some difficulties with this technique. Sometimes this technique is a little bit wonky in PC, which means you'll have to save the image. Once you have the mask intact, you would just save this image, just like this, and then save it out to your desktop. Then you would come to the in Photoshop, in your background image, you would come to the word File, and you would say Place Embedded. Then you would search out that image and place it accordingly. So now we can see that the image is placed, but it's a little bit too large. So I want to reduce the size. I'm going to hit Command T. That's going to bring up my transform commands. You can go to File. I'm sorry, you can go to the word Edit and come down to Free Transform or Transform Scale and create your transformations. Now at this point, I'm going to drag this. I want to hold my Shift key down to constrain the proportions. Okay, there's our banana. That's okay. I'm just going to hit Return or Enter, and that's going to place. There is that banana placed on its separate layer. Note that it's also got a mask in it, so there's the background. Okay, so if this needs to be adjusted, I can go ahead and work on that mask and adjust it. Okay, let's go to the next layer. And again, this would be indicative of the person and the thing. So you have to use your imagination a little bit. But at this point, we'll do the exact same technique. I'm just going to click that background to unlock it. I'm going to come and pick a selection tool, and I'm going to select my object. Okay, once it's selected, I'm going to mask it away from my background by just hitting that mask technique. Sorry about that little break there. But at any rate, so in our layers mask, we can see we've got the basketball masked out, right? So we'll just do the same technique. Again, PC users, so you may have to save this out to your desktop and use the File, Place Embedded command, okay? So with the basketball, let's grab the basketball, let's bring it right over to the background image, and let's go ahead and place it. And as we can see, it's a little large. Let's Command T that. And let's go ahead and get that into size. Okay, there's our basketball. Let's just enter that. Okay, now at this point, I want to show you a couple of things. Now, let me just reduce this a little bit. All right, now, we can start adding layer adjustments. Okay, I'm going to show you layer adjustments and clipping masks. So I wanted to show you something. So in layer adjustments, if we come over here to our layer adjustments, and I'm just going to use, we'll click this, and I'm just going to use a levels adjustment layer, and I want to show you what happens. So let's just go to levels. Okay, and that'll bring up our levels dialog box. Whoops, let's go to window properties, and that'll bring up our properties for that adjustment layer. Okay, now watch what happens. My adjustment layer is a levels adjustment layer. It's at the top of the stacking order, right? So if I make any adjustments now, note it affects the entire composition. We don't want that, right? I just wanted to adjust the basketball. So with that said, let me just show you exactly how to do that. So you'll go to, let me just get rid of that. So we'll go to the basketball layer. Now remember, I don't want to adjust the entire image. I just want to adjust the basketball. So I'll make sure I target the basketball layer. Then I'll do my adjustment layer. Okay, we'll do levels. Okay, now at this point, I know if I go to my properties panel and I work with those sliders, it's going to adjust the entire image, right? We don't want to do that. I just want to adjust the basketball. So this layer is above the basketball layer. All I have to do right now is come over here and right click and say create clipping mask. Okay, and that's going to create a clipping mask to the layer below it as soon as my computer starts This wants to freeze up for a second here, so I'm sorry about that. So here we go. Now the clipping mask is created. You can see by that little arrow right there that points to the next layer down. That means this adjustment layer is clipped to this basketball layer, right? So at this point, we can see I can go in here and I can make these changes, and now they're only affecting the basketball layer. So what we could do here, conversely, is we could come in here and do another adjustment for only the banana. We could do an adjustment for only the background. So you can see how we can really isolate different images for specific adjustments. All right, at this point, I want to show you, so that's a clipping mask, okay? And to release the clipping mask, again, just go right click and say release clipping mask. Okay, now at this point, I want to show you blending modes. You can also work with blending modes. These are your blending modes right here, okay? So we've got this, let's say we've got this basketball layer, right? So we can go in here and we can change these blending modes, and we can get all sorts of different techniques and different kind of effects with the blending modes. Now, I think one really interesting way to use blending modes in a composite is to duplicate the layer and add multiple blending modes. So let me show you. So I'm just going to duplicate that layer, right? And here is, we'll go in this blending mode and we'll say, let's say we can go into a hard light here. So as you can see, we've got a couple of different blending modes. So we go to hard, so you can see that by combining blending modes, you can get some interesting techniques. Okay, now again, in summary, I've showed you how to create a composite. I've always showed you how to make accurate selections to mask the background of the images that you want to pull into the main background for the composite. I've showed you how to create adjustment layers. I've showed you how to clip adjustment layers to individual layers, and I've also showed you how to duplicate and use blending modes. Okay, so again, guys, this video is not meant to really give you a blow-by-blow, step-by-step on how to do the actual assignment exercise, person, place, thing. It's meant more to give you just kind of tips and tricks and things to look out for while you're working this assignment. Okay? All right, guys. Questions, comments, concerns, clarifications, please let me know. I'll be glad to provide anything in that regard. Thank you very much.